Good afternoon, good evening, good morning, wherever you are in the world, and welcome to Shop Talk 32. I'm your host, Robert O'Brien, and I appreciate everybody tuning in here today. It's a little different time, trying to pick out different times where maybe we can pick up a little bit more people. If I do it late in the evening here in the United States, the people in Europe are already asleep, so they have to kind of watch it after the fact. But those that are here in the United States, it's after the working day, so perhaps we'll get a few more people here to tune in the United States. But anyway, thank you for tuning in. Today's topic is pore fillers. I get a lot of questions about finish work in general, but especially pore fillers. So I wanted to do a quick little shop talk and talk about pore fillers. I'm going to show some products, talk about them, demonstrate some of the products as well. So I got a bunch of announcements here, and I have to usually write all these down because there's starting to get so many of them. First of all, thank you, Jim Deeming, for the wonderful intro music there. And if you like that kind of music, thumb picking, go check out his site, jimsguitar.com. He's a local guy right here in Berthoud, Colorado. Fantastic fingerstyle player. Also, please post where you're from in the chat group. I see some guys already posting over there, so certainly appreciate that. Go ahead and post. Oh, look at that. There's Craig down there in New Mexico. Welcome, Craig. Craig was in my shop just here a few days ago. He dropped in with his wife, and we talked shop for a little bit. So thanks for joining in, Craig. Certainly appreciate that. Post your questions in the chat box, not only where you're from, but post your questions in there because we're going to be getting into some pore fillers here in just a little bit. So if you have questions about any of the products or the methods that I'm demonstrating, go ahead and put those in the chat box. Also, go ahead and sign up for the drawing. We do a drawing every shop talk. And Cesar, all the way down there in Brazil, we're going to be popping in to see him and Manuela here in just a few minutes. He's responsible for the drawing. So make sure that at the top of the chat box there, you can see there is a link to go ahead and click on, and then you can become part of the drawing. We're going to be giving away some free stuff here in just a few minutes. All right, I want to show you my website. I got a couple of quick announcements about the website. Let me just pull that up. And this is the Lutherie Academy website. First of all, the 10% off promo for the flamenco guitar bending course is about to end. It's going to end Sunday at midnight. And that course I'm very proud of. Paco and I did that several years ago, and it's not just a how-to on how to build a flamenco guitar, but it's actually a documentary about all things flamenco. We traveled all over Spain for a month and interviewed luthiers and dancers and singers and percussionists, and it's just a wonderful look into the flamenco lifestyle. So if you want to get 10% off, only until Sunday at midnight. Also, you'll notice that Luthier Tips du Jour Season 2 is out. And what Luthier Tips du Jour is the Season 2 is 50 unreleased videos. And you can see the topics there. I release those at the rate of about one every 3 or 4 weeks. And at that rate, it would take me about 5 years to release them all. But you can watch them all before they're released for a small fee, which helps support O'Brien Guitars and help keep the lights on here at O'Brien Guitars. So wonderful way to help us out there. Another course coming up is the 6-day classical guitar building course. You see a coming soon sign there on the left. I filmed that in 2021, and it is a complete build a classical guitar with students. It's taken me several months to edit it. I've just gotten done editing. Now we're going to get it up on the website here very soon. So I think you'll enjoy that. You'll learn my most up-to-date methods and how to build more efficiently. So be on the lookout for that. One more quick little thing, quick announcement here at O'Brien Guitars. Brand new. This is fresh off the press. Let me just show you this. So if you follow me on Instagram or you follow me on Facebook, you already know about this, but check this out. The official signature blend O'Brien Guitars Brazilian Coffee is now available. This is available through the Acoustic Coffee Company. O'Brien Guitars doesn't make a dime on this. It's to help out the Acoustic Coffee Company. Also, $1 from every bag sold goes to help the reforestation project in Central and South America. So this is just to help out them and the reforestation, and it has been approved by the girl from Ipanema. She's the Brazilian babe here in the house, and she has approved it. And so I'm sure you'll enjoy it. If you want to get 20% off all your purchase at Acoustic Guitar until Saturday, just click on the link there, order now, and then at checkout, use the promo code SMOOTH, SMOOTH, and you'll get 20% off your full purchase. And by the way, that is the same coffee that is served here in-house at O'Brien Guitars to my students when they come in and build guitars with me. And they all comment about how good the coffee is. So if you're into that, go ahead and click on the link there. All right, let's see, some more announcements here. LMI is having a 20% off bridge blanks this week only. You have to use the promo code BRIDGE. At checkout. It ends April 27th at midnight Pacific time. So if you're in the need of, for some bridge blanks, go ahead and get on the LMI website there. Don't forget to use the promo code BRIDGE at checkout. StewMac is having a mega tool event. The link to the StewMac site is in the video description there on YouTube, so go ahead and check that out. Upcoming events in May and half of June, I will be in Brazil. I will be filming with Brazilian luthier João Cacias, a brand new instructional video course. I will not tell you what it's about yet, but you're going to like it. So that's what I'm going to be doing in May and June. The Guild of American Luthiers Convention in Tacoma, Washington, July 5th to July 9th. If you've never been to the Guild of American Luthiers Convention, I highly recommend you do it. I will be there until the 8th. I have to leave a day early, come home, sleep, get on a plane the next day and go to Indiana, where I will be teaching a class at the Mark Adams School of Woodworking and high gloss spray finishes for instruments. Jeff Jewett, the finishing guru, and I will be doing that together. We did it last year. We had a wonderful time. So if you're interested in learning how to do a professional high gloss sprayed finish on your instrument, then that's the class to take. It is July 10th to the 16th. There still are some places together. So go do a Google search, Mark Adams School of Woodworking, and go check them out. Also in August, and this is the last announcement, folks. In August, I will be at the Northwood Seminar at the Gallup School of Lutherie. If you've never been to that, it's 4 days of just drinking from a fire hose. There's a lot of big hitters in the Lutherie world that will be giving classes there. Very controlled number of people, so there's not a lot of people. I think you'll really enjoy that. I will be there for that, so if you want to sign up and go to that, highly recommend it, and spaces are running out. There's only a few left, so go ahead and get into that. The Northwood Seminar at the Gallup School of Lutherie in Big Rapids, Michigan. That will be in August. Holy crap, that's a lot of announcements. Well, let's go down to Brazil real quick. I'm going to pull up Cesar and Manuela. There they are. Hey, Cesar. Hey, Manuela. How you doing?
Hello.
And by the way, Cesar and Manuela are now happily married. They got married recently. They live in Serquilho in the state of São Paulo, Brazil. And they're going to be with us here this evening doing the drawings and giveaway. What are we going to be giving away today, Cesar?
Today we are going to give away not only a course, a digital product, but also a physical product, which, by the way, is valid only for someone who lives in the US. And this product is actually a set of products, 3 Pore fillers by LMI. It's one of the drawings today.
Okay, very good. And by the way, here's a little bit of trivia about Cesar and Manuela. By day, Cesar is a mild-mannered web developer. But check this out. Let me just show you a picture of what Cesar and Manuela do. There you go. Cesar is an organist and also a harpsichord player, and Manuela plays the Baroque violin. And so there's a picture of Cesar and Manuela. There's another one. Where's that one, Cesar?
This is in Itu, is a city close to us, which is has a very important history to Brazil. It's a very old city.
There you go. So now you guys know a little bit about Cesar and Manuela. And by the way, it looks like they're in the Brian Guitars workshop, but that is a green screen. They are not in the shop. And the reason why I know that is because that shop is just way too clean. Look at that bench. It's very clean. All right, Cesar, we'll get back to you and Manuela here in a little while, and we'll do a drawing. Thank you so much.
Perfect. Thank you, Robbie.
All right, let's just check in and see who we've got here. Jack from California, Dan from Alberta. Oh, I always like it when the Canadians tune in. Jason from Arizona, Jim from Oregon, Ken right here in Colorado, Truckee, California, another one from California, South Australia. My God. Lane, what time is it way down there in South Australia? Holy cow. Wow. Jack's got an advisory meeting to go to tonight. All right, we understand. Jason, do you ever use sterrated sandpaper on bare wood before a finish? Sure, why not? In fact, we might as well just go ahead and start talking about it. Here we go. The topic is pore fillers, but actually the finish begins way before you even get to the pore filling stage. And that's the surface prep stage, and that requires sanding. And like my good buddy in Spain says, every luthier has to learn how to sand. You don't have to like it, but you got to learn how to do it because that is so important. If you don't do the sanding right, then you have sanding marks in there or scratches you didn't get out. So sanding is very important. Do I use sterrated right on the wood? Yes, I do. I have never had a problem with that. Let's talk just a little bit about sandpaper. I've got a piece right here. All sandpapers are not created equal. What I like in my shop for up to about 320 and 400 is the Pro Sand by Norton. It is a P grade, but up to about 320, 400, the P grade is very equivalent to the North American Cami grade. Now, if you guys think I've lost my mind or you're not following when I talk about Cami grade and P grade, which is the European grade, let's just talk a little bit about it. They are equivalent. The North American Cami grade, and that's spelled C-A-M-I, they are equivalent up to about 320, 400. The European grade, which is the P grade, they're about the same. Once you start getting up around 6, 7, 800, then they're no longer created equal. The P grade is about half what our North American Cami grade is. So if I have, for example, a 1200 piece of P grade, it's about 600 in our North American Cami grade. And if you don't know that, you could be going up in numbers, but actually down in grits. So make sure you know that. And you can buy sometimes in the same store, I've even bought it before in the same package, a mixture of the two grades, P grade and European grade. Now, where the European grade really comes into play is once you start getting into the sanding to finish. When you're sanding the wood, usually only go to about 320, and the grades are equivalent. Once you start sanding finishes, then you start getting up into those higher grits, and that's where it really starts to make a difference. So, very good question about sandpapers. I have not noticed a difference with the sterrated. By the way, I also wipe down the wood surface before I do a finish with naphtha, and that helps clean anything off of there. Now, as long as we're on the subject of sandpaper, the way that I use my sandpaper is very interesting because a lot of people just grab a sheet of sandpaper, fold it in half, and then start sanding. And the sandpaper is sliding around on itself. It's not working very efficiently. So the way that I was taught to do this is take a whole sheet, fold it in half, and then take that half and fold it into a quarter, and then rip a sheet off. When that happens, you've got a quarter sheet. And I take that quarter sheet and fold it into thirds. Now, having the sandpaper on top of each other like that, you're going to work a lot more efficiently because it's not sliding around on itself. Also, when you're sanding, all of my backer pads are made for about the size of that size piece of sandpaper. I put it on there, I start sanding. When that side's worn out, I flip it over, I sand the other side, and then when you just can't take it anymore and your arm's about ready to fall off, you open it up and there's a bonus section in there waiting for you. Fold it back over, now you can go back to work. That way you're working more efficiently with your sandpaper. This is one of the tips you're going to pick up in my 6-day classical guitar building course. It's going to be coming out soon. Just little tips like that to help you work more efficiently. All right, so before I start getting into the pore filling part of the dog and pony show, let me just check my chat box here. Make sure that we don't have any more questions. Hello from South Jersey. Hello from College Station, Texas. Washington, St. John, Indiana. Cesar has put the link to the 20% offering for the O'Brien blend of the Brazilian coffee there. Huntsville, Alabama's there. Here's a question. Jason, have you ever used the whiting brown umber mixed with turpentine and linseed oil for a pore filler? That's a great question. Well, first of all, what's the definition of a pore filler? And I tell my students that a pore filler is basically two ingredients. One is a solid or a resin. The second is some type of binding agent. In other words, something sticky that's going to help it stay in the pore. That's all that a pore filler is. Now, in the United States, we're blessed that we can walk in almost to our local hardware store and buy pre-made pore fillers. That hasn't always been the case, and especially in other parts of the world. Like when I lived in Brazil, you couldn't just walk into your local hardware store and buy a pore filler. So we had to wind up making things ourselves. And the traditional ways, French polish is, pumice or rotten stone mixed with oil and shellac, and you put it on the surface and you abrade the surface or sand the surface, move it around, and eventually the shellac acts as a binding agent. It helps it stick in the pores. And right about the time you're ready to throw your project against the wall, the pores get filled. So that's basically what a pore filler is. And your question is, have you ever mixed whiting or brown umber mixed with turpentine and linseed oil for a pore fill? Basically what you're doing is you're creating a pore fill and putting it on the surface and wiping it around and hoping it's going to stick in the pores. But what is the solid in that ingredient or in that recipe that you've given? In my opinion, it's the linseed oil, which has some type of a solid content to it. Now, I'm going to show you some methods here this evening, ways to make your own pore fill if you don't want to walk into your local store and buy one or call LMI and buy one. Let me start with a product that I learned in Brazil. Let me just pull up another camera here, and let's get rid of Jason's question. There's a bunch of different types of pore fill sitting on my bench, and we're going to talk about several of these here this evening. Let's first of all talk about this one. This one is ground cinnamon. Now, I'm kidding. It's not really ground cinnamon. It's actually in-grain sawdust that I've sanded and I've put into a ground cinnamon spice container. And when I say in-grain sawdust, let me see if I can just show you that. Let's say you have a piece of wood. Rather than sanding the face or the edge to get the sawdust, you actually sand the end. And what that does is create a very, very fine powder. So there's your solid, or there's your resin. The next thing we need is something to help it stick in the pores. And what I use is shellac. Shellac is sticky. That's your binding agent. But I was taught this method by Mr. Antonio Tessarin. In fact, actually, it's Cesar's father. When I lived in Brazil many years ago, Antonio taught me this method of pore filling. And he said that he learned it from a cabinet maker in Brazil. And the positive thing about this is that you can't walk into your local hardware store and buy a pre-made pore filler. You have to make your own. You always have scraps laying around the shop from your project. And so you always have a perfect color match. All you need to do is mix some shellac and go to work. Well, you got to make the sawdust too. And the way I make the sawdust is I have a big stroke sander over there in the corner, and I wrap a piece of newspaper around the dust port. And I grind the wood on it, collect it, and I put it into the ground cinnamon container. By the way, ground cinnamon will work as a pore filler. I've also used coffee grounds. It's a very fine powder. All you need is a binding agent that helps it stick in the pores. It works really good for Brazilian rosewood, by the way. So I'm going to quickly demonstrate to you my shellac and sawdust pore filling method. By the way, I show this in great detail in the upcoming 6-day classical guitar building course. So I pore fill the neck in the course with this. So let me just clean the bench off here. I've got props laying around everywhere here, but let me just try and clean the bench off here. We'll pull up a piece of wood. There we go. And let's dial up another camera. There we go. All right, this just happens to be a piece of Spanish cedar. And Spanish cedar and mahogany don't have nearly the size of pores as rosewood. Rosewood is, you have craters for pores. So you don't need something as quite as aggressive as you would for like a rosewood. Although I have used the dark colored rosewood for doing pore filling on rosewood, Brazilian and Indian rosewood, and it works great. But I'll just demonstrate real quick. All you do is just, this piece has been sanded to 320 grit, by the way. And so I just take a little bit, put on there like that, and I like to kind of rub it around, get it into the pores, like so. That's our resin, or that's our solid. Now we need a binding agent. Well, let me see what I can find. We got some spit around here. We got some chewing gum. And we've got a bottle of 1 pound cut of shellac over here beside me. So what I'm going to do is just take a little bit of 1 pound cut of shellac. By the way, if you guys don't understand what that term means, 1 pound cut of shellac, then all you need to do is get my French polish course, which, by the way, there's a very good review by John Coughlin in the latest edition of Guitar American Lutherie magazine, the Guild of American Luthiers, and he did a great review on it. So all I do is just take a 1 pound cut of shellac, put a little bit on the cotton ball, squeeze out the cotton ball. You don't want a lot. If you put a whole bunch on there, then it's actually going to be counterproductive. So let me dial up my next camera, the camera we were at here. Then I come in with that cotton ball and just rub it around. Notice how I'm getting on the surface and getting away from it. You don't want to spend a lot of time in the same place because the solvent for shellac is alcohol. And I've got mostly alcohol in this pad. Now, using a 1 pound cut, this will flash off very, very quickly. So I can immediately go back over it. So we'll put a little bit more on there. Rub it into the pores. And then once again, I've probably still got enough shellac in there. Come in and start rubbing it around. And get on it, get away from it. Don't go back over it. Let it dry to the touch before you do it again. I find that usually about 3 or 4 coats on the neck and all those pores are completely filled. Now let me show you what can go wrong if you get too much dust or if you get too much shellac. So let me just put a little bit more dust on here. I'm not going to rub it around. I'm just going to leave little mounds of it there. And this time when I charge my pad, I'm really going to charge this thing up. I'm going to leave it soaking wet. So the first risk you're going to have is after you get a few coats on the project or on your surface there, you run the risk of reactivating your binding agent from the previous coat and then pulling the pore fill back out. But if you get too much on here, here's what can happen. You start putting it on there and you start getting these cloudy, opaque areas. And pretty soon you got a sticky mess on your surface. See, it's already starting to happen here. See how it's a little darker? But if I keep going, it gets really crusty and you get a lot on there. And now you have to get more aggressive when you come back and sand it back. The more aggressive you have to get, the more risk you run of pulling it out of the pores. What I like to do, and this is already pretty much dry to the touch, after I've done my 3 or 4 coats or however many it takes, then what I do is I come in with 320 grit paper and it feels kind of gritty, kind of like a sand because of all the dust on there. Also, the grain has kind of risen up a little bit. So what I do is just lightly sand it. Now what you're seeing of that dark area there is because I put a little bit more shellac there and it's not quite dry. That's why it is. But one of the cool things about this, this technique is that you can do it very quickly. And then you can go immediately to your spray booth if you're going to spray over the top of it. You don't have to wait overnight for your pore filler to dry. Also, your shellac pops the grain and works as a sealer between the wood and your top coats or whatever you're going to put on for the finish. So that is a really cool method. And you can use the dark wood as well on darker colored woods. So that is a really cool way of doing it. Thank you, Antonio Tessarin, for showing me that almost 25 years ago. What a great method. Always have scraps laying around. You can always have an unlimited supply of shellac and sawdust. There you go. So let's just see if we got some more questions here. Do you always use egg whites to size the tops? Ah, there's somebody that has watched my French polish course. No, I do not. I showed that in the French polish course, but I very rarely use that. The only reason that I would use egg whites to size the wood is if you have a type of wood that's going to bleed into your top or into your white purfling lines as you're doing your finish work. For example, rosewood bindings, cocobolo bindings, other types of highly oily woods. When you wipe shellac on there, it's going to go into the top and you're going to contaminate the top. So if you put a coat of egg whites on there, that keeps that from happening. And I show that in my French polish course if you're interested in that over on the Lutherie Academy. That's a great question. If you want to learn more about sizing, go check out the French polish course. Great question, Jason. Thank you for that. Nathan from San Diego, hello. Rich Haas. Rich has a question. Are you going to mention filler with egg whites, pros and cons? All right. Now, don't get confused. Egg whites as a sizing product and egg whites as a filler. Some people decide to use egg whites as a filler. Now, egg whites to me, there's not a lot of solid content there. So you're going to be there a while, and you're basically putting water on your wood, and the wood's very thin. So be very careful doing that. I use egg whites if I use them for sizing or it's basically a wood sealer rather than a wood filler. So don't get the two confused. I don't use it as a filler, but I use it as a sizing. Okay. Let's see. Ken, he wants me to talk about the advantages and disadvantages of pore filling guitar tops. Some builders do and some don't. All right. So pore filling is generally done on porous woods. Top woods, what we normally use for top woods on guitars, our soundboards are either some type of spruce, redwood, cedar. And those are non-porous. So technically you do not need to fill the pores. The finish itself will take care of that if you've done your surface prep properly. There's no pores per se. There is a little wood texture, but there's no pores. So I generally don't seal or do any type of pore filling on the top unless it's a coat of shellac or perhaps egg whites. That's the only reason I would do it. Now, some people, when the water-based finishing products started coming out, would put some type of pore filler on the top to help with the color, because the early water-based finishes had no amber type tint to them. They were water white, and they just kind of washed out the wood, didn't look good. So I have heard of epoxy as a pore filler, not necessarily a pore filler, but a sealer on top woods just for a color, or a shellac just for a color, but it's not for pore filling. Great question, Ken. Thank you so much for that. Let's move on down here. Rich, by the way, is just right around the corner from me here in Colorado. Way to go. Keith, hello from Utah. Who on earth planned a conference to start the day of the 4th of July? He's talking about the Guild of American Luthiers Convention. It actually starts on the 5th. I'm going to travel very early on the 5th and get there around noon on the 5th. But yeah, it was scheduled for about the 3rd week of July, and then there was a scheduling conflict with the college there where they hold it, and so they had to, just accept the dates that the college was willing to offer. And unfortunately, July 5th to July 9th is what it came out to. All righty. Hello from Minnesota. Thank you for tuning in, Terry. Hey, there's Melanie. I believe Melanie's up in Washington there. Let's answer her question. I used a UV Cure Solarez for a pore filler. Liked the initial results, but then several days later, a darkened ring, oily looking occurred around the pores. Thoughts? Okay, so that's one of the products I'm going to talk about here. So let me just clean off the bench here a little bit. We'll pull up that product and we'll answer your question. What did I do with it? Here it is right here in front of me. Almost bit me. This is Solarez. Let's see if we can bring it up on the other camera. In fact, I've even got a camera up above me there. Look at that. Solarez. This product, one of my French polish online students, or my virtual French polish from a couple of years ago, used Solarez. Basically, you open it up and it smells like a fiberglass or a polyester. It really stinks. But you don't need a UV cure lamp to cure it. You can just step outside, or you can just let the UV lamps inside, the UV light inside, cure it. If you want to get a UV lamp, you can get them off of Amazon for $50, $60, just a cheap black light kind of thing that has enough wattage to it to kick it a little bit quicker. But I bought one of these because my student in my virtual French polish class a couple years ago bought it and just loved it. Well, I put it on rosewood. I stepped outside in the middle of summer. It's 90 degrees here in Colorado, and it wouldn't cure. I left it out there a good hour. That wood was hot, and it wouldn't cure. So I did a little research on it, and what was happening is the antioxidants, the oil in the rosewood was keeping it from curing. So it works really well, except my experience is on oily wood, you want to try and avoid it. Unless you maybe put some type of sealer like a shellac or something on there, which I have not tried yet, by the way, but I imagine that would work. So on walnuts and cedars and mahoganies and other types of woods that do not have the oil that rosewood does, it works fine. In fact, this student even prepared a little video that I shared with my virtual class students. So if you took the virtual class, there's a little demo on actually how to do that. But it's really very simple. You open up, you put it on the surface, wipe off the excess, and then walk outside. Can't get much quicker than that. I have not used this product very much. Full disclaimer, so I'm not sure about, compatibility issues and stuff. What you're seeing, black rings, I imagine it might have been some oil, perhaps, in the wood coming out. I don't know. You didn't tell me what kind of wood you were using there, Melanie, but it may be some type of oil coming up that was keeping it from fully curing. That could be a problem. But that is a viable option. Solarez, not very expensive. Stinks to high heaven. You want to use in a well-ventilated area. That's another option for pore filling. By the way, pore fillers are like finishes. There's no perfect finish. There's also no perfect pore fill. There's a pore filler. What you want to do is, first of all, when you choose a finish, the question you want to answer is, what do I want the finish to do? And second, you have to choose a finish that has the maximum number of positive points or pros with the least amount of negative points, cons, because they all have negative issues as well. And pore fill is the same way. We've already answered the first question. We want it to fill the pores. That's the first question. And the second question is, all right, which product are we going to use then? So choose your poison. Choose one that has the most number of pros with the least number of cons. Okay. I hope that answered your question there, Melanie. Let's go on down here. Robert, late as usual from Colorado, Four Corners area. No problem. Would you pore fill a koa top? Yes. Koa has pores. I would fill that koa. Also, it's got a lot of wood texture, and a lot of the koa that we use is a lot of it's in grain. And so, yes, I would use it. Now, I would use probably a pretty aggressive pore filler. I'm thinking probably an epoxy. Which, speaking of epoxy, that was Nathan's question. Which method would you use for koa? Anytime I have to get real aggressive with the pore fill, I like epoxy. And we'll talk more about that just in a minute. But that's probably what I would use there, Nathan, is an epoxy on that. Yep, Melanie says, I put it on rosewood and the oily look shows inside. Inside? Wow, I wonder if something happened where it penetrated and came out the other side of that rosewood. Because rosewood is highly porous, by the way. So, all right, let's talk about epoxy. There are several types of epoxy on the market. And the one that I like is this brand here. Let me see if I can pull up the overhead camera there. There we go. I use the finishing resin. It's by a company called Zap, Z-Epoxy Finishing Resin. And there is a code on the side of the box here. Where did it go? PT40, if you can see that. PT40 is what you want because there are other versions of it, PT39, PT41, whatever. There are other versions. This one is a finishing resin. In other words, it's a leveling agent. And I don't know whether I would use it for, structural integrity parts. I don't know if it's made for that. It works really well for leveling. And so this is a very forgiving product. Let me pull up this other camera here. It comes in two parts. One is the hardener, one is the resin. I always forget. Okay, the resin is the brownish one, and the resin is the clear one, and the hardener is the brown one. So there is a little bit of color in this, and I kind of like that. I like that amber color, that you get from a traditional shellac or lacquer, for example. So I kind of like that. Although there are several ways to apply this. One way, actually, let me back that up. Let me talk about the mixing of it. The reason why I like this brand is because the mix ratio is very forgiving. Some of your epoxies out on the market there are very temperamental when it comes to mix ratio. You have to weigh out both components and you have to get it just right. If not, then you could have issues with the curing. So when you mix it, this particular brand, the Z-Epoxy Finishing Resin, is very forgiving. It's a 1-to-1 mix ratio, and I just eyeball it and I count to like 5. 1 Mississippi, 2 Mississippi, 3 Mississippi. And because there's two colors in it, you can see it in the cup that you're mixing in. It separates until you mix it together. And so you can kind of eyeball the mix ratio, make sure you got it right. I find that about 5 or 6 seconds is about enough to get me to do an entire guitar body. When you mix it, I've got a little story about that. I had a student, in fact, he's one of the students that's going to be in the 6-day classical guitar building course, because in that course, I build along with a student. We build a guitar for the student. And so you see the interaction as I teach, and a lot of times the student has questions that I wouldn't even think of, because I think, everybody knows that, but the student asked the question, and so it's very beneficial that way. I think you're going to enjoy the course. But I came to the point where I was mixing the epoxy, and I started stirring it. And the student said, "Do you know what you're doing?" I said, yeah, I'm mixing epoxy. He says, no. You're banging molecules together. I said, okay. And then he proceeded to give me a textbook explanation of what's going on a molecular level as I'm mixing the epoxy. Come to find out, he's an expert in epoxies. Who would have known, right? But for me, I'm just mixing, but if you prefer to bang the molecules together, okay. And the more you can bang those molecules together, the better chance you have of it curing. So once you get it all cured or all mixed, then I just squeegee it on the surface with those old promotional credit cards or room key cards from hotels and stuff. They work great for that. You can just throw them away afterwards, but really squeegee that off. When I apply it, there's a couple different ways to apply it, and I use 2 coats. Remember I talked about woods that have craters for pores? Rosewood is one of those woods, so I like to do 2 coats. And there's a higher solid content in Z-epoxy than some of the other products that I use. All of the products will work. Just choose one that works for you. And I really like this when I'm doing epoxy or when doing rosewood, for example. When you squeegee it off, 2 coats. First coat, apply it on, and it soaks in very quickly. Squeegee it off the best you can, because when it comes time to sand it, if you don't get it off there, you create work for yourself. I let it dry overnight. The next day I come in with a palm sander, 320 grit, and just scuff it. I don't try and sand it all the way off. I just scuff it so that the next coat has something to bite into. The second day, at the end of the day, I apply the second coat, and this time I really squeegee it off. I get 90 degrees on that card and really scrape it as thin as I can possibly get it. Let it cure overnight. The next day you have to sand it. Well, my experience has been that you cannot sand it because it's so thin. You cannot sand it without going through it. When you go through it, now you've exposed fresh wood and you have a blotchy area. Some people remedy that problem by mixing up a third batch and then diluting it 50-50 with alcohol. So now it's like water. Then take a paper towel and just wipe it on there. That evens out the color. You leave a thin coat of epoxy and then you finish over the top. Word of caution, folks, if you're not paying attention to anything else, pay attention to this. There's such a thing called blush or blushing, and it creates an oily film as a finish cures, or as the epoxy cures. And I've had I've experienced on a few occasions adhesion issues and problematic finishing issues because I didn't get the blush off. So what I do is, since I'm going to sand through it in areas anyway, I just go ahead and sand it completely off. Go ahead and sand it all the way off. That way you're left only with epoxy in the pores. You've exposed a lot of bare wood. You've gotten rid of your blushing problem. And I do that with 320 and then go ahead and start my finish work. Generally, my finish in my classes here is French polish, and I find that French polish works very well on bare wood with just epoxy in the pores. So I really like Z-epoxy. I get mine from LMI, and that's a great product. Now, I get this question a lot, I do not put it on the neck of the guitars. The reason why, first reason is the neck, my necks are Spanish cedar or mahogany, do not have nearly the crater size or the pore size as the rosewood. So you don't need something quite as aggressive. Also, I like to sand the epoxy all the way off to bare wood. If you put it on the neck, it's going to soak into the end block or the heel block, and it's going to soak into the wood around the transition in the peg-head, which is also a lot of ingrain. Now you've created work for yourself. Make your life easy, folks. Don't create work for yourself. If you have to sand all that off, you're going to have some blotchy areas. It's going to take you a long time to get all the way off. So that's why I don't use epoxy on the neck. All right, let's go see if we got a few more questions here. Danny from North Carolina, welcome aboard, Danny. Certainly appreciate that. There's Nathan again. Which method would you use for Pore or for Pore? I've already answered that. Melanie, we've already answered that. Pore fill Paduke. Yes. I have a piece of Paduke around here somewhere. Where did I put that sucker? And it's a beautiful, oh, here it is. Let me just wander over to my other bench over here. It's a beautiful piece of Paduke. You got to see this. There we go. This is a piece of Paduke that I've been using for several years in my finishing classes. See the scratch there? I have a virtual French polish class coming up this Sunday online, and we're going to talk about how to repair, finish, and stuff. So I keep this around. Paduke doesn't necessarily have pores, but it has a wood texture. So if you want to fill it, you can. I generally do, just because I like a nice level surface before I get started. And this finish on here is French polished shellac. It's very old. I mean, it's been on there several years, been banging around my shop and in my tool bag and stuff. And you can see it looks pretty good. Shellac can be a very durable finish, by the way, if done properly. But that's a piece of Paduke. I really like Paduke, and it polishes up very quickly. But I generally like to put a little something on it. Now, pore fill. I've got another example here of colored pore fill. And this is worth mentioning. In general, I use a lot of rosewoods, dark colored woods. And the general rule of thumb is you want your pore filler to be as dark as or darker than the actual wood. But you can do some interesting things with color. Let me see if I can get this to show up. Here's a piece of Brazilian cherry. We call this jatobá in Brazil. Notice the lower half here has been filled with a dark colored pore fill. And see how it really accentuates and pops the grain? Look at that. And the other side of this has been filled with a transparent pore fill. Still quite beautiful. I've also rubbed this side out to satin. One of the techniques I teach in my French polish class. But there's no color in the grain. And so you can see the difference there. See, the color actually kind of pops the grain. If you want to accentuate the grain, that's something you can do. A lot of electric guitar builders do that. They have like a piece of swamp ash or something that has a crazy grain in it. And they put like a dyed pink or dyed green pore fill. And you can really accentuate the grain. Okay, John, let's see. His question. After spraying 1 to 2 coats of nitro lacquer, large areas of pores become apparent on the back. Can you pore fill on top of the lacquer, or should you sand back to bare wood and start over? That is a great question. Depending on what you're using, you can pore fill right over the top of it. In fact, some people, because of the bleeding issue that I talked about earlier, you don't want the rosewood to contaminate your white purfling lines or other types of lighter colored woods. A lot of people spray a wash coat of lacquer or some type of seal coat first before they do the pore filling. So yes, that is a very viable option. And depending on what you're using, just go right over the top of it. By the way, you don't necessarily have to use the same pore filling product. You could use one on the wood, spray a couple coats, and then figure out, I got a little area in this area, a little problem in this area right here, and then you can go ahead and do some more pore filling there with a different product. Okay, moving right along. Boy, we could probably talk about this for half the evening, but we need to move right along here because we got a drawing coming up. I don't want Cesar Manuela to go to sleep down there in Brazil. Here's another pore filling product. Let's pull this up. This is Balin's or Beelin's, or however you want to pronounce it. Mohawk product, I think is what it is now. It's a water-based grain filler. This just happens to be brown. It's a latex type filler. What I used to do is I would buy this and pull out a teaspoon of it and then dye it black. And that would be my pore filler. And that works very well. Water-based filler. Along those same lines is a product called Timbermate, which comes from Australia. For all you mates down there in Australia, you're very familiar with this product. To me, it smells like licorice. I mean, if you open up and smell it, it kind of smells like a licorice. But if it goes bad, if it hardens in the container, just squirt a little water in there, it reactivates it. It's really quite well. They say that it doesn't shrink, although I do find that until the water gets out of it, it does shrink a little bit. So maybe a coat or two. This is a very quick pore filler because it dries quickly. Don't get it anywhere near your top or light colored woods, folks. Seal those tops up really good, and then you can come in. If you have a gap between your, like a black binding and a purfling or something, not the top of the purfling, but the purfling and the binding, this works really well for filling it. Great product. Let's see, another product here. Oh, this is a good product. Oh, by the way, here's a piece of Wenge. Wenge also has craters for pores. This has 2 coats of epoxy on it, and I have not even sanded it back to bare wood yet, but you can see already how level it is. Once I sand it all the way back to bare wood, all those uneven parts will go away, and it's ready to be French polished this Sunday in my virtual French polish class. I wanted to show you another pore filling method. This is a really cool method, very quick also, and that is using Glue Boost products, Glue Boost Fill and Finish. And basically it's just an epoxy is what it is, but a very quick, fast-acting epoxy. And what you do is just take a little bit, put it on the wood. Oh, of course it's clogged. Of course it has. Let me see if I can just get a knife out and open this up here a little bit. Bear with me just a second here, folks. Now, there we go. Now I can get half the bottle on here, exactly what I need, huh? There we go. So just put a little bit on your surface. And I like to use a glove because you don't want to stick yourself to the wood. You can still even do it with the glove. By the way, when the gloves come out, things are getting serious, folks. So here come the gloves. Put on a rubber glove, go over here, and just take it and just rub it around into the pores. Spread it thin because, don't create work for yourself, folks. I'm a firm believer in working efficiently. Once you've got it all spread, then I come in with the Glue Boost Accelerator and just hit it real quick. There you go. And that dries very quickly. Then, of course, you want to sand it back. So once it dries, come in with your sandpaper and hit it with your 320 grit. If you need to, apply a second coat. I find that I very rarely need to apply a second coat. Once again, you're probably going to go through it. So if you do, sand it all the way back to bare wood so that you don't have your blotchiness areas. Now, I really like the CA glue method on my classical guitar peg heads. And the reason why is for the sake of time in the class here. When I'm putting my pore filler on the back and sides, which is Z-epoxy, and on the neck, which is shellac and sawdust, then we turn the guitar over and we start French polishing the top. Everything that's facing up gets polished. Well, the peg head is facing up and it's generally rosewood. So what I do is I just do a quick shot of the Glue Boost here, sand it back, and then immediately start French polishing. And it just is super level to begin with. So we've all heard the expression that the finish is only as good as what's underneath it. Boy, that is especially true with your low solids products like shellac. There's not a lot of solids content in there. And so make sure that you do your surface prep properly. All right, let's see if we got any more questions here. San Antonio, Texas, Pore Phil Paduke. Yes, we already answered that one. Jack has a question. I use 150 thick resin. How would Z-epoxy compare? Never used it because I buy in bulk for layups. I don't know. I've never used 150 thick resin. I have no idea what that is. I find that the Z-epoxy is, it's kind of like a thick CA glue, kind of like those glue boosts that I just used. And let's see, Z-epoxy for laminating double sides. I don't know. They call it a finishing resin. I don't know how. I would probably choose a different epoxy if I'm going to laminate sides rather than the finishing resin. Okay. Hey, there's Cliff. Welcome aboard. Robbie's favorite student. Cliff is a local student here, and he's come by and built a guitar with me. By the way, he has one he has to deliver here real soon. I hope you got it done. I think it's for somebody in his family, like his mother-in-law or something. You don't want to piss her off, so make sure you get that done, Cliff. Very important. All right, I'm getting down to the nitty-gritty here. Let me talk about this product here. Then we have to do a giveaway today. Aquacoat. Aquacoat is a water-based, transparent filler. It's just like a gelatin. And it is fantastic to work with. It's smooth, or it smooths and levels very easily. Where I like this product, I don't like it directly on bare wood. In fact, I don't like any water-based product directly on bare wood because I think it just kind of washes out the wood. So I would generally seal before I would go over it with a water-based product. This product I like for leveling, not necessarily pore filling, but for leveling. For example, classical guitars come in, they want to refinish the top. They got a lot of fingernail marks down below the rosette. This works wonderful. It takes several coats. I had a guy that has a big lute collection here in Colorado. He brought me a bunch of lutes that had a bunch of fingernail problems and dings and stuff. And after several coats of this, they had leveled. It's transparent. I went right over the top with some shellac, and you didn't even know that those were there. So this is a great leveling agent. I also like this around classical guitar rosettes. They're all ingrained. They're highly porous. This does a great job of sealing that up. I would do a wash coat of shellac first, but great, great product. Get it from LMI. I love it. Let's see. What else have we got here? Oh, I've saved the best for last, I think. These are pore fillers from LMI. And it's like a mushroom, or not a mushroom, but a marshmallow. Said that wrong. It's like a marshmallow. It's extremely light. It's almost like air. And you can buy it in different colors. You can buy it in dark. You can buy it in kind of a reddish brown for like a mahogany. And you can buy it in a neutral color. And it's extremely light. It's like a whipped marshmallow or whipped cream or something. But it spreads very easily. And I'm just going to demonstrate all three of these just very quickly on that piece of, let's do it on a piece of Spanish cedar. Because remember, you can play around with colors, and that's one of the homework assignments for my French polish students in my virtual class, is to play around with colored pore fillers and colored shellacs. So if you'd get a paper towel, let's get a paper towel here. Just put a little bit on the paper towel. Let's start with the kind of reddish color here, which works very well actually on mahogany and Spanish cedar. Just come in there and rub it in. It's almost kind of a brownish color. Once again, notice how I'm going across the grain there, kind of diagonal. Get it off of the surface. Don't create work for yourself. If you need to, add a little bit of moisture to it. I usually find that it spreads pretty quickly. And since it has a little bit of color to it, you can actually kind of pop the grain there a little bit. It works very well for mahogany and cedar though, just the color it is. Here's the dark color. You would probably use this on a rosewood. But look how easy that spreads. Boy, this is just fantastic. Cross the grain like that. Get it all back off of there. Don't create work for yourself. And see, that pops the grain even more. On darker color woods like your rosewood and stuff, it's great. If you want a neutral color, then you can come in, get the neutral, rub it around in there like that. It does go a little bit lighter than the actual wood, but by the time you add your finish on there, it blends right in, and you don't even notice any color at all on your lighter woods like your cedars and your mahoganies. Once you've got it all on there, let it dry, obviously. You're probably going to want to put several coats. I would probably do at least 2 or 3 coats of this because it is going to kind of shrink back a little bit as it dries because it is a water-based product. Once you get it all on there, then come in and just sand. Now, if you have the colored stuff, make sure you do the whole wood, obviously, so you don't get blotchiness going on there. But just a light sanding is all it should take. The more aggressive you get with your sanding, then you run the risk of pulling it out of the pores again. But just a light sanding is all it takes. And all your pores are filled. Now, how you know the pores are filled or not, what you need to do is just take your piece of wood and just hold it up to a light source and look at it. And you'll be able to see if there's low spots in there. If there's low spots in there, go back to work. Do as much pore filling as it takes. 1, 2, 3, 4 coats, whatever it takes. But don't get your finishing products out until the surface is prepared properly. Don't ever count on the finished product doing what you should have done in the surface prep stage. Unless you're spraying something like a catalyzed urethane or polyester or something that's almost like 100% solids in a liquid form, then that can actually become your pore filler and it will eventually fill everything. However, as instrument builders, we have to think about tonal issues as well. The more gunk you put on the wood, the more damping effect it can have. Okay, let me ask a few more questions here real quick, or answer a few more questions, or maybe we should go do the drawing. I think we'll go do the drawing first. Let's, by now I think that Cesar and Manuela are probably asleep down there in Brazil. Let me just pull them up. There's Cesar and Manuela. How you doing, Cesar and Manuela? All right, how many people have signed up for the drawing?
We have how many people now? We have 40 people. 40 people for this
40
round.
people. All right. Now, this drawing is for only the people that live in the United States. We're going to be giving away 3 to the same person, the neutral, the reddish brown, and the dark. Oh, by the way, you can also tint these any color you want. You can add black or whatever you want to find your own little recipe. So this is for only people in the United States. Go ahead. Let's see who's going to win. Number 30. Who's number 30?
Switch to the spreadsheet. And 30 is over here. It is Michael.
Michael, congratulations.
I remember this name. I think
I remember this name too. He must be a lucky guy. I think he's won something before.
Yeah, lucky guy from past shop talks.
Yeah. All right. So Mike, what you need to do is Cesar will contact you and get his, I need his phone number, his name, and his address, his mailing address, so that we can send that to LMI. LMI is going to ship you out 3 containers of their pore filler. So congratulations to Michael. Congrats,
Michael.
Very good. Cesar, Manuel, you can now go back to sleep. Thank you so much.
No, don't worry.
Okay. All right. We're going to answer just a few more questions here, and then we need to call it a night. By the way, all the shop talks will be available forever. You can watch them, watch the replays. If you go out to the Lutherie Academy website, click on the video page, all of the previous shop talks are all there. So all of this great information is available to you for free forever. So go ahead and just check it out. Quick question here. This is in Hawaii. Is epoxy okay with water-based lacquer? Yes, and a lot of people use Z-epoxy under the water-based products to impart some type of amber tint to it. Now, all of these days, some of your water-based products are coming with an amber tint, or you can tint them directly. But yeah, some people were putting, in fact, I've got a video years and years ago I did, I think a DVD about guitar finishing that actually showed using KTM9. Remember that early water-based product that I don't even think exists anymore? Using Z-epoxy or epoxy resin as a color all over the guitar, even on the top. So yes, that is a possibility. Good. And let's see, who else we got here? I use CA glue for the headstock. Oh, good. Honai does that. Honai is down there in Brazil, I believe. And Gary, dang it. Besides, better late than never. Oh, thanks for joining in, Gary. Appreciate that. I have to head out to the advisory council. Okay, we'll see him. Aqua Coach. Steve loves Aqua Coach. I do too. And Gary from Flagstaff, Arizona. Hello to all. Sorry I'm late. No problem. Jim, what pore fill would you use on a Brazilian rosewood with approximately 2-inch sap line? That's a great question. If you have sapwood and you come in with a dark filler, for example, you're going to make, the sapwood has pores too, and so you're going to accentuate those pores, which I think looks pretty cool in sapwood. I don't necessarily mind dark pores in that light colored sapwood. If you're worried about that, you can use the CA glue and the glue boost method in that area or on the whole guitar back. The aqua coat, the transparent, there are ways to avoid popping the grain with the dark colored wood. But I really like a sapwood with a dark colored grain. I think it looks cool. So thanks for that question, Jim. Cesar has put up the link to the LMI pore fillers. There we go. And Michael, whoopee, yes, you won. Congratulations. Here's a good question. Nicholas, how would you pore fill with wood that is to be dyed? There's 2 ways to do it. One is just pore fill directly on the wood and then come in and dye the wood. However, you're also dyeing the pore fill, which can be good, which can be bad. Another way would be to go ahead and dye the wood, put a seal coat on that, and then pore fill. And then when you're leveling your pore fill, you make darn sure you don't go into that color coat, because now you got a blotchy area. So there's 2 ways to do it. Okay, well, we have had quite a little conversation here this evening. I hope this has been beneficial to everybody. Thank you to Cesar and Manuela all the way down there in Brazil. Let's bring them up again. Thank you, Cesar Manuela.
Thank you, Robert. Thank you, everyone.
Appreciate that. Oh, we can do a little bit better with the applause. Let me find a better applause here. That was kind of weak. There we go. There we go. Thank you to Cesar Manuela down there in Brazil. By the way, when I visit, I'm going to go visit them here next month, and I'm going to take them some Lutherie Academy T-shirts and hats, so that in the future they can come on the screen here with the Lutherie Academy logo and stuff. So, thank you, Cesar Manuela.
Thank you, Robert.
Very good, and thank you everybody else for tuning in. I hope you find this information useful. If you do, take a trip over to the O'Brien Guitars website. The Lutherie Academy website. By the way, the O'Brien Guitars website, you're going to be forced to start using the Lutherie Academy website now. So go ahead and access the Lutherie Academy website and purchase something. Help us out. Also, the sponsors on the Lutherie Academy website. There's a bunch of sponsors there. Go ahead and if you need something from them, go ahead and help them out because they help keep us in business here at O'Brien Guitars. Thank you very much. Over and out. We'll see everybody next time. Bye-bye.